You've probably felt it. That sudden twitch in your thumb to check your phone for no reason at all. We've become addicts to a digital world that's sucking us dry, but what actually happens when you finally pull the plug? Let's talk about why deleting social media is the hardest, most rewarding thing you'll ever do. It starts with a twitch in your thumb. You're standing in line for a coffee, or you're waiting for the elevator, or maybe you've just hit a mental wall at work. Before you've even consciously decided to do it, your hand is already halfway to your pocket. It's a reflex, as natural as breathing, honed by years of digital conditioning. But then, you feel that sudden, sharp jolt of realization. The apps are gone. You deleted them. Welcome to the ghost itch. In the beginning, quitting social media doesn't feel like a grand spiritual awakening or a peaceful retreat. It feels like losing a phantom limb. For years, your phone hasn't just been a tool. It's been your primary defense mechanism against the slightest hint of discomfort or boredom. We've been programmed to believe that 10 seconds of silence is an emergency that needs to be cured with a scroll. When you remove the apps, you aren't just removing software. You're removing a psychological crutch you didn't even realize you were leaning on so heavily. You'll find yourself ghost checking constantly. You'll unlock your phone, stare at the blank home screen where the colorful icons used to live, and then, out of pure muscle memory, you'll open your email. Then you'll check the weather. Then maybe you'll scroll through your camera roll, looking at photos of a lunch you ate 3 weeks ago, just to satisfy that desperate, nagging hunger for input. Your brain is literally screaming for a hit of dopamine, and it doesn't care if it comes from a meaningful connection or a spam folder. It just wants the noise. This is the itch that most people can't stop scratching. We've become a society that is terrified of being alone with its own thoughts. The second a thought becomes too heavy, or a task becomes too difficult, we reach for the digital escape hatch. When you close that hatch, you're forced to stay in the room with yourself. It's awkward. It's restless. It feels like your brain is understimulated, which is really just a polite way of saying you've forgotten how to exist without constant external validation. But here's the thing. That itch is actually a sign of healing. It's the sound of your neural pathways trying to figure out how to function without a shortcut. When you resist the urge to reach for your phone during those tiny gaps in the day, something subtle begins to shift. You start to notice the world again. You notice the way the light hits the floor in your office or the specific rhythm of the city outside your window. You realize that you've been living your life through a 5-inch screen, missing the 360-degree reality happening all around you. Breaking the digital reflex isn't about willpower. It's about acknowledging that you've been a bit of a robot and deciding to become a human again. It's about realizing that you don't need to know what's happening in a stranger's life while you're waiting for your toast to pop. The discomfort is temporary, but the clarity that comes after you stop scratching the itch, that's where your real life actually begins. Once the ghost itch starts to fade, you hit a much thicker, more suffocating layer of the experience, the FOMO fog. This is the phase where the silence stops feeling like a novelty and starts feeling like a social death sentence. For the first week or two, you'll be haunted by the nagging suspicion that the entire world is gathered in a room you've just been kicked out of. You start to wonder, what are they laughing at right now? What's the joke I'm not in on? Is there a catastrophic news event happening that I'm blissfully unaware of while I sit here staring at a tree? This is the psychological tax of the modern era. We've been conditioned to believe that knowing is the same thing as belonging. We think that because we see a photo of a friend's dinner or a video of a former classmate's vacation, we are somehow maintaining a relationship with them. In reality, we're just collecting data. But when you step away, that data stream cuts off, and the withdrawal feels like isolation. You'll feel a strange sense of mourning for people you haven't actually spoken to in 5 years. You'll worry that if you aren't liking their posts, you'll simply cease to exist in their minds. And honestly, you might. But that's the most liberating part of the fog. In the beginning, the FOMO is sharp. You'll hear your friends reference a viral clip or a new slang term, and you'll have to be the person who says, "I haven't seen that." It feels clunky. It makes you feel like an outsider, like you're suddenly old or out of touch. You might even feel a surge of anxiety about your career or your social standing. Am I falling behind? Is the mantra of the FOMO fog. But then something beautiful happens. As you keep walking through that fog, it starts to thin out. You begin to realize that 99% of what you were missing out on was nothing more than digital styrofoam. Light, airy, and completely devoid of nutritional value. You realize that you don't actually need to know what a person you met once at a party in 2018 thinks about the latest political scandal. You don't need to see the third-tier memes that will be forgotten by next Tuesday. The fog lifts to reveal the signal. These are the people who actually have your phone number. The people who, when they have news, call you or text you directly. You start to see a massive distinction between your audience and your community. Social media gave you an audience, a wide, shallow pool of spectators who watched your life from a distance. Quitting social media gives you back your community. The few, the proud, the people who actually know the sound of your voice when you're sad. When you stop trying to keep up with everyone, you finally have the capacity to show up for someone. The FOMO fog is just the transition period where your brain realizes that missing out on the everything is the only way to truly experience the anything. You trade the anxiety of being out of the loop for the peace of being in the moment, and you find that the world didn't actually end just because you weren't there to watch it on a screen. You're not missing out on life. You're finally starting to live it without a filter. If the fog is starting to lift and you're beginning to wonder who you are without the noise, you don't have to navigate that silence alone. I've put together a guide called 30 Days to a Better You to help you bridge the gap between quitting the scroll and finding your spark. It's designed to turn that digital withdrawal into a month of intentional growth. You can find the link in the description. Now, let's talk about that uncomfortable silence that comes next: boredom. After navigating the twitching reflexes of the itch and the social anxiety of the fog, you arrive at the quietest, most daunting stage of the journey, the boredom threshold. This is the moment where the quiet stops feeling peaceful and starts feeling heavy. In our modern world, we've effectively declared war on boredom. We've branded it as a failure of productivity or a lack of entertainment. We've been so overstimulated for so long that our dopamine receptors are practically scorched earth. We don't know how to just be anymore. And when you strip away the infinite scroll, you are left face to face with the void. It hits you at the most random times, standing in the kitchen waiting for the kettle to boil, or that 30-second gap between finishing one task and starting the next. Usually, that's when you'd whip out your phone and shove a handful of brain rot into your mind just to kill the silence. Without that option, those 30 seconds feel like 30 minutes. You feel restless, irritable, and strangely empty. This is what society calls boredom, but what's actually happening is a deep psychological detox. We've forgotten that boredom is actually the fertile soil of the human mind. Think back to when you were a kid. Boredom was the catalyst for everything. It was the reason you climbed that tree, the reason you started drawing on the back of old envelopes, and the reason you invented elaborate games with nothing but a stick and some imagination. Creativity isn't born out of a crowded mind, it's born out of a vacuum. But when you fill every microsecond of your life with a constant stream of fast, cheap dopamine, TikToks, Reels, headlines, you never allow that vacuum to form. You're essentially constipated with other people's ideas, leaving no room for your own. As you cross the boredom threshold, you'll notice a shift in your attention span. In the beginning, trying to read a book or focus on a project will feel like physical labor. Your brain will keep trying to tab out because it's used to a new hit of novelty every 6 seconds. But if you stay in the discomfort, if you actually allow yourself to stare at the wall or sit on the porch and just watch the wind in the trees, something miraculous happens. Your creative spark, which you thought was dead, starts to flicker back to life. You'll find yourself having ideas again. Not content ideas meant for a feed, but actual, genuine thoughts. You'll remember a hobby you abandoned years ago. You'll feel a sudden, inexplicable urge to clean your desk or bake something or go for a walk without a podcast playing in your ears. This is your brain healing. It's moving away from the consumption model and back toward the creation model. It's hard to do hard things when easy things are so insanely gratifying. Quitting social media is a way of making the easy things less available so that the hard things, the meaningful things, become more attractive. The boredom threshold is the gateway. Once you stop fearing the silence and start leaning into it, you realize that boredom isn't the enemy of happiness. It's the prerequisite for a focused, creative, and inspired life. You aren't killing time anymore. You're finally giving yourself time to breathe. Once you've sat in the silence long enough to move past the restlessness of boredom, you stumble into a realization that is both startling and a little bit frightening. You realize you don't actually know who you are. Or, more accurately, you realize that much of what you thought was you was actually just a patchwork quilt of other people's opinions, aesthetic choices, and algorithmic suggestions. Welcome to Reclaiming the Lens. When you are on social media, you are standing in the middle of a global shouting match. Every time you open an app, you are bombarded with thousands of micro-directives. A video tells you what cool people are wearing this season. A thread tells you how you should feel about a complex political issue in 280 characters or less. An influencer tells you that your morning routine is a failure if it doesn't involve a specific $50 supplement. Over time, you don't just consume these ideas. You absorb them. You start to regurgitate opinions you haven't actually tested against your own values. You buy things not because you love them, but because you've seen them in your feed so many times that your brain has mistaken familiarity for desire. Without realizing it, you've been looking at the world through a lens that was manufactured by an engagement-hungry machine. When you step away from that constant noise, the lens starts to clear. At first, it's disorienting. You might stand in a store and realize you have no idea if you actually like a piece of clothing, or if you just like the vibe it projects online. You might hear a news story and find yourself waiting for the correct take to appear in your mind, only to realize that the source of those takes, your feed, is gone. You are forced, perhaps for the first time in years, to form your own point of view from scratch. This is the process of developing your authentic self. It's a bit like an identity crisis, but a healthy one. You start to distinguish between a belief that you've wrestled with and a slogan you've just repeated. You begin to notice your own personal style. Maybe you realize you actually hate the minimalist beige aesthetic everyone is obsessed with. Or maybe you find that your political views are far more nuanced than the black and white echo chambers allowed you to express. When you create your opinions separate from the crowd, they carry more weight. They belong to you. There is a profound sense of power in being able to say, I believe this because I've thought about it, rather than, I believe this because I saw it on TikTok. You stop being a mirror that merely reflects the latest trends and start being a source. Reclaiming the lens also changes how you view others. Without the lens of social media, you stop seeing people as characters in a digital drama or as metrics to be compared against. You start seeing them as humans. You stop performing your life for an invisible audience and start living it for yourself. You find that your style isn't something you buy or post. It's the way you move through the world when no one is watching. By cutting out the noise, you finally give your own voice enough room to speak. And you might be surprised by how much that voice has to say. We finally reach the end of the road, the place where the dust settles and the air becomes crisp and clear. Quality over quantity. When you first started this journey, you probably felt a profound sense of loss. You looked at your shrinking digital footprint and saw a void where connection used to be. You worried that by deleting the apps, you were closing the door on the world. But as you stand here now, you realize that you didn't actually close a door. You just stopped trying to live in a crowded, noisy stadium and walked back into the warmth of a quiet home. You've traded 1,000 shallow likes for a few deep conversations, and for the first time in a long time, you don't feel lonely anymore. Social media is a master of the illusion of propinquity. It makes us feel like we are surrounded by people because we see their faces and read their thoughts every hour of the day. But that's a trick of the light. You can have 5,000 friends online and still feel like the loneliest person in the room because those connections have no weight. They are made of pixels and dopamine, not shared experiences and eye contact. They are wide, yes, but they are only an inch deep. When you quit, the audience disappears. The people who are only there to watch the show of your life. The former classmates, the coworkers from 3 jobs ago, the random acquaintances, naturally drift away. At first, this feels like a failure. You think, my circle is shrinking. But soon, you realize that your circle isn't shrinking, it's being refined. What's left behind are the signal people. These are the ones who notice when you aren't around. These are the friends who have your phone number and actually use it. They are the ones who show up at your door with a coffee, or call you just to hear your voice, or invite you to a dinner where no one takes a photo of their plate before they eat. The reward of direct connection is a sense of groundedness that social media can never replicate. When you hang out with someone in real life without the pressure to document the moment for a feed, the interaction changes. You listen better. You laugh harder. You aren't thinking about how to frame the moment for a story. You are simply in the moment. You find that you have more energy to give to the people who truly matter because you aren't wasting your emotional currency on people who don't. But this isn't just about other people. It's about your relationship with yourself. A life lived offline is a life lived with intention. You start to realize that a sunset is still beautiful, even if no one knows you saw it. A meal is still delicious, even if you didn't post it. Your achievements are still valid, even if they didn't get a single heart. You move from a performance mindset to a presence mindset. By the time you reach this final stage, you realize that the trade-off wasn't a sacrifice at all. You didn't lose anything. You just stopped carrying a heavy bag of digital garbage that was slowing you down. You've reclaimed your time, your focus, your identity, and your genuine relationships. You've traded the infinite, exhausting scroll for a finite, meaningful reality. And while the world inside the screen continues to shout and panic and perform, you are here, present, peaceful, and finally, truly connected. You aren't just a user anymore, you are a person. And that, in the end, is worth every single obstacle you faced along the way.